very much, Your Excellency, Deputy Minister. I'd like to cordially greet you all, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very austere occasion, and it is being organized in a very difficult situation. Not only am I thinking of what the world around us is presenting to us in terms of the challenges. You know that Minister of Justice has to deal with a lot of things, but I am also a father of 5 children. So it means that I have very important experiences with children, and it is also perhaps worth mentioning that to mention certain things that we don't deal with too much, because we are living in a world where the changes taking place are going to affect our children and our children's rights, or it will impact it definitely. In recent times, there has been a very significant communicational change in the world. The world has not only increased in pace and the whole communication process, but in fact the communication has basically changed. And this change in the basics has meant that one day Gutenberg and Zuckerberg will be mentioned together. So the first printed book was also a communicational revolution. There was an actor who actually was communicating, and there was a recipient, the reader. This is pretty much what happened so far, but the devices changed. However, in this world now, we have a double communication system. Everybody can become an actor, everybody can become a so-called influencer in this world, and everybody's opinion counts, everybody's opinion can be heard, and you can react to everybody's opinion, which actually leads to a completely new communicational world. Huge social changes that are happening and will be happening. And the reason I'm saying this, especially with respect to children's rights, because what I'm seeing, unfortunately, is that this is a huge communicational divide that has come about. And here the scissor is opening. The older generation, I mean us 50-year-olds, understand less and less the young people, because their communication space is a completely different communication space from what we grew up in. And this also means at the same time that the forms of communication, meta-communication, everything has changed in recent times. And we see families finding themselves in more and more difficult situation to understand their children. So, and also when children communicate with one another, to see the kind of world they are living in and the kind of challenges that this poses for children, what children actually encounter in this world. You don't only have a situation where parents are no longer able to check what their children are dealing with. They cannot experience that world. And then, of course, they're completely unable to gauge the impacts that this communication surfaces have on children. So there's 2 separate worlds arising, and I can say that when I grew up, I would have had a much closer relationship with my parents in this sense than I have with my children now. This is a major issue for parents, because if we are unable to understand one another, if we're unable to appreciate the world that we are communicating in, we will never be able to understand our children. And this is going to be a huge headache, a huge problem in the next coming period. A lot has to be done to also have this reflected in the legal framework, because of course you can have good law and you can have good children's law if otherwise this communicational divide is not bridged. So what you will just see is that our different systems, like the awareness or alarm systems, will not be operating accordingly, because the whole world of understanding will not be functional well, and we will not see on time the impacts affecting our children, because by the change of the communicational space, you will be in a separate world. And the danger, the threat in this world is that there are separate worlds being created around our children. worlds that are difficult to understand, but also worlds that might be completely different from one child to the other child. And this would have a great impact on the perception of reality by our children. This is not going to depend on the world around them, but the perception of reality will be influenced by the virtual world that surrounds them. And one child might be in a virtual world that is completely different from another child. So this is something we have to deal with, and it's very, very, very difficult to find appropriate legislation for this. It is a fact that our legal conventions on the protection of children and other international regulations, national legislation, have a huge impact and significance, but we should not forget to update them regularly. We have to think over whether we need anything new, any new protective measures that need to be introduced. And also, beside children's rights, we need to be able to reinforce parental rights and parental responsibility. This means that in this world, we are going to see stronger and stronger impacts from the outside on our children, and these external impacts we will need to be able to limit them or control them. So we need to be able to do that for parents. In Hungary, we have a very, very strong system of children's protection institutions, and the regulation is also very strict. So this is what our child protection law is about, that has been attacked by so many. It has to be made clear as to whose right it is to bring up their children, or the way they bring it up. Who has the right to define this? Is it possible to have a situation where we, the of course, I'm not talking about depriving the rights of a parent that is manifesting some deviant behavior, but just a normal parent. Do we have the right to take away, to deprive the parents of this right? And of course, we Hungarians in the legal area, we are endeavoring to actually ensure this right of the parents, so that nobody has the ability to talk into the way or to influence the way a parent wishes to bring up their child, especially true in the area of sexual education. We have numerous institutions that have been created recently to deal with children's rights. And after this lengthy introduction, let me say a few words about how the present legal system actually is trying to introduce some changes, enumerating, of course, a non-exhaustive list of all the things we considered important procedural-wise, or in terms of the legal framework to ensure the protection of children. One of the most important tasks, I believe, and of course, is our whole alert system for children rights. Of course, this is basically about parents and children understanding one another. Of course, albeit everybody who comes into a contact with a child should be able to strengthen this kind of alert system, and we have created a software background that is able to operate this alert system. And I think the whole Hungarian system, quite uniquely in the world, have a very unique system in Hungary, a network of professionals dealing especially with small children from their birth. And this system of district nurses actually helps families in their problems or their issues related to bringing up the child in any aspect of the word. Of course, this system of district nurses has a function that has to do with alerting the authorities. Everybody stands to play a role, and in this sense, it is actually mandatory for courts as well to the court has the obligation, if under any court procedure they see that the rights of a child might have been encroached on, the court also has the right to raise the alarm, and then different state institutions will have the possibility to take the appropriate steps. What I consider also important is if you're a lawyer and if you have come across children in litigation, it is important that, well, legal process, litigation is a rather high tension experience for children. As a lawyer, you tend to basically get used to it, but as a normal civil person, you would have appearance in front of a court once or twice in your whole life. But if a child is being interviewed in court for a deposition in court, it has a huge impact on them. Any kind of statement by a child in front of a court and the judge is a huge challenge. And the Hungarian system has instituted changes. On the one hand, we have endeavored to increase the speed of process, which is especially important for children because legal uncertainty will be of a decisive importance for a child. They will experience something much more deeply. It will be much more troubling for them for the entire duration of their life if there's a protracted procedure. Also, when it comes to interviewing children, we have ensured that this should be not something where a child is subjected to several kinds of interviews with several persons, several experts. Also, the burden of proof is something that has been introduced in these processes, and all this has been done with a view to protecting the children's rights. So, increasing the speed of legal procedure, reinforcing children's rights, changing the circumstances for interviewing children. Municipal courts by now have specifically children-friendly courtrooms nowadays. So this is actually happening, and I believe that this has a great bearing on many children. This is going to have a huge impact on them. What I also consider important is that these children have to hence have a sense of security during such legal process, which means that during the course of the procedure you cannot have a situation whereby the child would have a reduced sense of security further than what otherwise they might have. So, if a child only experiences tension, it is going to have an impact on their growth. It is important that we should also provide an opportunity for a child to articulate their opinion. And I have already alluded to the fact that children-friendly courtrooms are important. Just like the rules for depositing a child, for taking the deposition of a child is important. We have ensured this, and I think in all these areas we have to pay attention to something I have alluded to in the beginning, the changing world. A child now is not able to only articulate their opinions to the court orally, but there is also the possibility of a video deposition or, God forbid, a written deposition, which provides less stress for the child. And also at the same time we have to think of the fact that these children sometimes operate in a completely different communication space. So we have to be able to interview them, we have to be able to place them in a space where they feel secure, and then their opinion should later on be important. Of course, I could go on at length with all the different measures that we have taken, But because of this fast-paced world, because of the changes in the communications space, because of our life and world changing at such a pace that we are almost unable to keep up, some of our children sense these changes earlier than we actually do. I think we have to be very careful to be able to provide the appropriate responses. It's not only that these rules have to be made, but it's also that legislation, legal application is always so important. These are problems that are not appearing at the national level only. These are there in the international sphere, and I believe that although we do not come from the same country, I would assume that everybody senses these problems and considers these problems to be an equally important challenge. So I'd like to encourage you, and this is what I would like, if possible, you to discuss, is how we can respond to the challenges of this time, and how we could ensure the rights of children in a way that should allow them to use their rights and live with their rights. Thank you very much for organizing this conference. At the same time, I'd like to thank you all for coming, for dealing with this issue, because I believe that we will only be able to ensure the protection, the appropriate protection of children, if these issues are managed and are discussed, so that we will be able to come up with practice that is going to be able to promote children's rights and will help to ensure the appropriate protection of children. Thank you very much for listening to me.